Hi, this is Dr. Frank Chopini with the Church of Rational Truth. Want to start off today with some good news. We did hear back from the IRS. We've been officially given 501c3 status. So we are now a legitimate nonprofit. So donations are tax deductible, which is very nice. Took a couple of months to get that, but it finally came through. Today's topic, we're going to talk a little bit about proselytization. And whether it's moral or not, the church, we are known, if anybody's seen any of the other videos, we are usually very wishy-washy with things. Usually with morality, we go, oh, sometimes it's moral, sometimes it's immoral. These are the times. This is when we should get into it. Proselytization is one that we have a much harder stance, or a much more concrete stance. That is that it is generally immoral and it should be kind of avoided if at all possible. The reason is, well, because of proselytization. Well, first let's start. Proselytization is the spreading or the active recruitment of people to join your ideology. Usually it's used for religious conversions. Usually it's for Baptists, evangelical Christians, or really, any type of religion where you go out and you actively try to get people to join your church, or you're actively trying to change their opinions to become the same opinions as your own. Now, it doesn't just necessarily apply to Christians, but you do see it a lot in the Christian faith, because there's a lot of sects that are very, very heavy on evangelism and proselytization. Proselytization is a big part of that, is going out and outreach. Mormonism, very big about it. Everybody gets sent out on their missions to convert more people. But you don't necessarily just have to see it. You could see it in lots of other things. There are certain atheists, agnostics, not so much agnostics, but some atheists who are very strong in terms of proselytizing. They will still spread their opinion about atheism, and they will try to force it down other people's throats. That still counts as proselytization. Even though it's not a religious proselytization, you are still trying to force someone to adopt your beliefs, or you're trying to actively spread your beliefs to someone else. So you go to me, why is this immoral? I think my beliefs are the right beliefs. I want other people to also have my beliefs. That only seems right to me. A lot of times that's what's used to justify proselytization, is you say, well, this is the right way of thinking, so they should think this way. It is my job, or I am bound ethically and morally to try to spread that proper way of thinking to them. The reason that is logically flawed is you are not necessarily guaranteed in your belief that you are accurate. I don't think anybody is, even the ones with the most evidence or truth behind them, which we always push for evidence. We push for rational thinking. We push for logic. We push for truth. Even the things that seem the most true or have the most data behind them can be eventually proven to be inaccurate or false. So for anyone to have the wherewithal to say that their belief is 100% actually correct, so much so that everyone else should be forced to believe their way, or that you should be actively pushing people to believe your way, is immoral, just because you cannot prove that you are 100% correct. No one can. It's something where truth is something that we have to gain over time. We have to add. The only thing you could probably say is that you can prove that someone is definitely wrong. It's hard to say that anybody is absolutely right 100%. So that is one big flaw in terms of proselytization, or the argument for proselytization is that your belief is right and therefore other people should believe it. Well, I don't think anybody can 100% say that their belief is right. Therefore, you might not be spreading truth or a correct opinion to others. You may be actually pushing a wrong belief on others. That's, I think, one of the big reasons proselytization might be immoral or seen as immoral, is if you are pushing anything that is at all inaccurate, you are pushing ignorance, and that is not something we want. We don't want people to get wrong information or understand things incorrectly. We want things to be correct, right, accurate. So that's one thing. If someone proselytizes very strongly, but let's say has very incorrect beliefs, such as, let's go back in time, when we always thought, or when it was common belief, that everything revolved around the earth. That was an incorrect assumption. If you went and pushed that belief on other people, which was often done at that time, you proselytized that belief, you only spread ignorance and you slow down the furthering of mankind. We can't get further because now we have this wrong belief that we're using to base our judgments on, and we are not going to be able to advance scientifically. We're not going to be advancing culturally because we are pushing an incorrect assumption or belief because of proselytization. Uh, One other reason is you might be forcing another person or another group or another organization into doing something that they might not actually believe in themselves, or that they might actually say that they're going to be believing, but not necessarily because they actually believe it, but because of secondary gain. We talk a lot about secondary gain and morality of what additional thing do you get from doing this action. For me, I did so I hate to calling it mission work, but I did some medical work in West Africa that was associated with a church that was very evangelical. I think they were technically non-denominational, but they had a lot of Baptist leanings, I would say. And they had a hospital and they had a religious outreach program. And basically, the hospital's job really wasn't to act as a hospital. The hospital's job was to convert people. That was the main objective. And this isn't me having bias in this. I am incredibly biased. I'm going to admit that. But the director there sat down and told me our job first is to save souls, saving lives is second. And that was their official stance. Their official stance is we are here to convert people. We also do medicine and try to save lives, but we would much rather convert someone than save their life. That is our preference number one. And you actually saw that. You would see that they would neglect the medical side to push the religious or their own doctrine. So people would be spending time doing prayer rather than trying to fix the facilities, update protocols. I know for a fact that while I was there, people probably died because of mismanagement. We had vents that we could have put people on that were not being used because they didn't have the time, the money, or the energy to fix them, to train people in how to use them, and to continually update and manage them. They were too busy doing other things, and much of that was proselytization. So you can see that when you do it for secondary gain, you can end up really hurting people, that you're trying to give them something in exchange for agreeing with your doctrine. For them, it was medical care. People would come, and if you would come and pray and you would kind of join in, you got medical care. I don't believe they really charge much of anything for it. And so people would be more likely to join the religion or to agree with their thoughts because they'd get some secondary advantage. People who worked there, they hired many natives to work as their nurses, their administrative staff, and you got a very nice job if you just agreed with their doctrine. And they ended up doing some very immoral things because they would really try to push it on the people, try to change their culture and their way of life. And for them, there was a very nice incentive. You got a nice cushy job, you got good money, and all you had to do was just change your beliefs a little bit or just say that you had changed your beliefs. So for them, it was a very good exchange. The problem is they are selling out their beliefs for an additional gain. And I do believe many of them didn't really fully believe those things. They just did them because you would get a nice job. I remember that there's one example where they were actually even going to a lawyer to try to fire one of the employees because he was in a polyamorous relationship, which was clearly against their church doctrine. They thought everybody should be monogamous, man and woman, one set, that's it. And they had someone who had joined as an employee who had two wives, which in West Africa is not unheard of. It's not the norm, but it's also not unheard of. So they were trying to fire him specifically because he was not changing his beliefs to fit their own. And honestly, I think that's incredibly unethical. If you hire somebody, them being fired should not be based on their personal beliefs. It shouldn't be based on their sexual beliefs. It should be based on, are they doing their job appropriately? Are they a good employee? Are they doing things that they're supposed to be doing or not doing things that they're supposed to be doing? Are they appropriate for that job or not? It should have nothing to do with their personal lives, their personal opinions, or their own morality or beliefs. But because they did not actually engage in all the beliefs that they said they had believed in, the group was actively trying to force them out, and that was a very strong way of coercing people, is possibly firing them from their job if they don't accept your belief. That is one of the most immoral ways of proselytizing, is kind of putting your thumb on someone and really turning the screws if they don't abandon their own beliefs or their own systems of acting to adopt your own. There's a common term in India and other Southeast Asian countries called a rice Christian. Basically, what would happen is if you converted and you joined the religion, you would get a big bag of rice. You would get some additional benefit from it. I've even heard from people here who are sons and daughters of immigrants where they said, yeah, one of the reasons they joined the church is they needed that sense of community, or they got some additional benefit from joining the church. It wasn't necessarily because they believed in everything the church said or that they were true believers of the church. I believe that any kind of coercion or forcing is immoral. That person is not really joining because they agree with the doctrine. They're joining because they're getting some other secondary gain, or they're removing a negative many times. And that's very harmful. You have people who are not believing what they want, or people who are forced into a certain belief system. In terms of spreading belief, it should be as passive as possible. I think, if anything, people should be allowed to look at the evidence. They should be allowed to decide on their own, and they should be the one who is reaching out to the group. For us, we believe most proselytization is immoral. We actively try not to actively proselytize. We don't go out and try to convert people. We don't go and try to get new people into the church. That's hard because then it's a lot more difficult to grow a church. It's hard to get new members, but we're also hoping that the members that do come because they actually believe in our message. They believe in the things we believe in, and they want to join and help the church and help themselves, be an active member. And that's much more moral. That person is there because they want to be. They're there because they share your belief system. And that's how it probably should be with all organizations. That if someone actually is allowed to see by example how the other person acts, they go and they say, this is what their morality is, these are what their belief systems are, and then they kind of internally judge and decide on their own. They look at the facts, they look at the information, and they decide, yes, I actually do believe in this. I think I want to join in. I want to be a part of this. Or they go, no, do you know what? I don't see all these things making sense. I'd rather have my own beliefs. And then they don't get punished. They don't get anything additional or taken away. It is just the exact same. And that is how it should be. That is how we try to operate as an organization. That's how we think other organizations should act. This goes, in addition, I've talked a lot about religion, for people who are also atheists. If you see a lot of atheists or rationalism forums, not all of them, and I would say not the majority of people, but there's definitely a small percentage of proselytizing atheists who will just take anyone who has even the least bit of faith and just be demeaning and coercive and oppressive and trying to force that other person to give up their beliefs. And I think that is also not the right way. I'm a little bit more personally in line with that. There probably is not a God, that is more likely than not that there isn't. But I also don't believe that I should go around trying to force that specific belief on people. I should have a reasoned discussion if someone wants it. I should share why I have my opinion if someone is open to hearing my opinion. But I think me actively going on and going, hey, you believe in a God, haha, you're an idiot, or hey, you have faith, you're such and such religion, you are so stupid, this is why you're wrong, and jumping down their throat, that is not the right way of doing it. One, the person should have free will to make their own decision. Their decision should be based on the information given to them, and they should be able to decide what they're going to believe. And two, you don't really convert a lot of people that way. Honestly, if you want someone to actually think the same thing as you do, it's like a parent trying to force a child to do something. The more you force them to do it, the less likely they're going to be to do it. Especially if you do it in a harsh, demeaning, and oppressive manner, they're not going to want to join. If you want someone to take up your thoughts, you lead by example. You show them why it is, a good life or a good way of living, and you let them evaluate it themselves. Someone is going to change because it's going to be their decision. I mean, the only other option is you're so horribly oppressive, or you're adding so much of an additional benefit that they move because of that. But you want someone in a free, just, moral society, or in the society that I want to live in. I want to be allowed to make my decision. I want to be able to look at my options, and I want to be able to then join the group that best fits my personal opinions and my personal beliefs. And I think that's what people who are even atheists, agnostics, and rationalists should do. I think the majority of them do that. I think it's a small vocal minority who are trying to oppress people with beliefs. But the way that they should be doing it is to put out the facts. If someone wants a reasoned discussion, have a reasoned discussion, but don't try to force that other person to accept your beliefs. That is immoral. It is not going to help. It's only going to make you look worse. It's going to not help your cause. And the other person usually only becomes more entrenched in their beliefs. If someone has a specific belief that is opposite and you try to force your belief on them and they're not willing to accept or not open to accept your opinion, they're only going to double down on their beliefs. So the best thing to do is to just have a reasoned discussion, and if someone is open, talk with them. But if someone is not open, well, that's fine. It's okay to let someone else believe something else. Hopefully with time they'll look at more evidence or they'll be able to decide on their own, but if not, that's also fine. Hey, Jackie boy. Because Jack wants attention, I think that's probably enough for today. But next week we'll probably have another lecture. We'll talk to you. We'll also go over the finances for next month, see how much money is in, and then see what passive income is going to go towards whatever cause we decide. Once again, this is Dr. Frank Chopatini with the Church of Rational Truth. Thank you so much for stopping in. Y'all have a great Sunday. Bye-bye.